especially, Black women were not, not as visible in comparison to now.
Hmm.
So if they were visible, they're usually doing something within the arts or entertainment industry. Whereas media has changed, everyone kind of has the ability to be more on the forefront. So someone might not necessarily work in the entertainment industry or in the media industry or any form of creative scene, and yet they can still have an opinion regarding on what's happening in media, on social media, and that opinion can gain traction. So I will say it's definitely shifted. Whether it's shifted negatively, I can't say 100% because I feel like there was already a perception of Black women. So let me speak for like myself as a dark skinned Black woman. Is like around the time when had come out, I remember there was like circulating the casting call where they said ugly darker skinned women so that they could portray like ghetto, like this kind of ghetto stereotype within Compton. So even though some of us might have not grown up in that environment, we were aware that that was the stereotype of a certain demographic of Black women at that particular time based off of environmental factors. And they were bold enough and willing enough to go ahead to even put that out as a casting call. Obviously, because of the way media has shifted and because now public opinion is instant and you can see it there and then, outrage was able to basically correct them and say, we don't think like that anymore.
Yeah.
Like this has to change. What you're saying is wrong. Whereas before, they could call Black women tramps and all sorts of things, and there was no repercussions. No one would bat an eyelid. So um, I will say that, do I think perception has changed? Not necessarily. I think it's down to the individual. I think now less grace is given because more education is available.
Yeah.
So you can no longer be reliant on your ignorance.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I think also adding on because we have such instantaneous media, and because we used to have kind of like a one size fits all for the Black woman, like the perception of women, I think because we have so much variety, it can also allow for people to kind of think, oh, why don't you fit into that category that we've been told time and time again? So when you start seeing Black women who are into alt fashion, because I studied fashion, so that's a huge part of what I understand. So people who are into alt fashion, alt scenes, rock music, indie music, all kinds of different things that maybe technically are not into like hip hop, Afro, all that kind of stereotypical stuff that we see. I think the very perception has allowed people to kind of think that doesn't make any sense to me. And it's kind of making people at this time, I think, get into the understanding of, oh, there are different kinds of people. Like they're not just all one collective group, like even from just very from Black Brits to Black Americans, like how the differences and things go between. So I wouldn't say that we have a negative opinion or that people perceive us negatively, but I also wouldn't say that they perceive us positively. I think they are in a space of where it's like, I just don't understand this anymore. Like, why do they keep changing? Why do they keep doing this? Why is there so many different versions now? Like all of these things, and we're no longer just like what people used to think of. Because in schools we were always taught about slavery. We weren't taught about the other side of things where people were living lives and having families and doing other things. Like our whole history has been slavery, even though as Black Brits, that's not necessarily our own story anyway. We have our own things from Windrush to people, even just now immigration, the way laws are changing. So I think it's kind of a space where people just don't understand. So they choose either not to understand or then they go and like look into it. So
Find that I mean it's thin on the ground anyway in the UK, but if I think about some of the bigger names, they've all been they've all got sort of their star or their profile from playing either matriarchs or maybe like detectives. I think there's something very interesting about Black women portraying detectives on TV, both here and in the States. And you don't really see Black girls in Black British TV. It's only been in the last few years. I think that's where you've really started to see an increase. And I think it was really interesting, the point around social media and reactions, because I think that also adds to development. You know, it's like, okay, yes, you can't hide behind there's no demand out there anymore, because people on social media are literally openly fantasizing about having more media like this. So you know that there is an audience there. You know, you can develop something like Borders, which is literally depicting Black school children in a British environment. But it is still, for me, age is a very interesting thing about how Black women are able to sort of appear in media. They always have to be sort of mature, matriarchal to some degree. Maybe it speaks to the mammy archetype to a degree. Maybe it speaks to some other sort of socioeconomic things and stereotypes.
Difficult, because I do see a lot of the time in my line of work where I see darker skinned Black women, especially when they fit into the conventionally attractive, or whether they're attractive or not, or well, conventionally attractive to the male gaze, and what they're shaped like. So they are immediately sexualized the moment they walk into the room, and it's like, okay, well, we're going to put you as this, or like myself, they're behind the scenes. Usually what I find as a makeup artist is that as a Black woman, if you are shaped in a particular way, you're going to fit into a particular role, regardless of what your ability or what your talent is. And you see this across the board, that the thicker girls are usually the video vixens, and then the ones that are a bit more plus size, or the ones that are not what we would consider conventionally attractive, or like either they play them as someone that's homosexual, or someone that's undesirable or hypersexualized in media, is what I see a lot in younger shows. Even
Like nowadays, in terms of like how Black women are portrayed in media, I feel like there's been some change, like there's been some slight improvement compared to the past, like in instance for like in terms of films, like usually if it's a white casted role, you'd see them mainly being like the female lead, she's, you know, taking care of like the family, she's got her own like job at the side, and like hobbies as well, whereas Black female leads, they tend to be like you know, like you guys said, like sexualized. So they'll either be a prostitute, or they will end up being like in some sort of like a drug like gang kind of thing. But nowadays we're starting to obviously see that switch show, that change. Like they get the same roles as their white counterparts. So which is, you know, it's really good. But I do think we still have like a long way to go until all of these like racist stereotypes and connotations like sort of drop.
I went to school in the era where the word colorism wasn't really known.
Hmm.
So when I was in school, people used to call me Blake. They used to say like all sorts of things towards me. And I developed tough skin, because for me, people that I looked up to was like Nia Long, Alec Weck, Naomi Campbell. So these were like Black women in media that weren't far off in terms of what I looked like. Luckily for me, towards the tail end of my secondary school experience, that's when YouTube started to pick up. So now I'm starting to see further representation outside of the names mentioned on YouTube. These are just everyday girls that some of even I even went to school with. Went to school with my sister, just applying makeup or doing their hair or like styling their hair. And this is the time of the natural hair movement as well, all at the same time. That it's given me like an idea that, you know, we don't have to fit into a particular box, because for a long time it felt like, as a Black woman, even though Nia Long was an inspiration of mine, I remember my mum raised the point, and I thought, you know, that's actually pretty true. My mum hated the films that Nia Long used to act in, because yet again, going back to hypersexuality, she was hypersexualized in the industry. As in, there were countless movies with her having multiple sex scenes, sometimes fully nude, and her male counterparts aren't the same. And then you would find other cast members that she plays alongside with don't don't act that way. So my mum used to be like, why is it that she in particular has to act that way? And I didn't really clock it until I went to uni, because that's around the time when it was like melanin magic, black girls rock. Now all of a sudden, you know, melanin's the in thing. But then obviously when you go to university, your horizons are broadened. You're out of, because I grew up in London, so you're out of the hood per se. And now you're surrounded by people who do like darker skinned women, and probably they faced outright racism. So it's not colorism for them. It's just black or white where they're from, because these people don't even, some of them don't live in London, so they don't understand our school dynamics and the way things go down there. And then you start to meet other black men who also grew up in London that do like black women. So that's when I started to realize how much the media played a role in how I saw myself. Because when I went to college, I started to realize that a lot of my friends were engaging in hypersexuality because they had been told that as a black woman, this is just how they have to act in order to be loved and in order to be appreciated. So if before you knew it, that's your self-esteem is just basically gone, because you almost feel like, if I don't act this way, if I don't, you know, show my boobs or dress half naked, or if I don't have my hair bone straight, or if I don't, you know, braids aren't in style, wearing braids to your birthday is crazy, you know, get a bust down, all of that stuff, you feel like you don't fit in. But luckily for me, I grew up in an environment where my dad's music choices were quite eclectic. So um I I listened to Khalees, and she was an alt girl. So seeing her with her big curly afro, and I always wanted, even though I knew those weren't styles I could achieve with my hair, it was nice to see a difference in representation, because a lot of the time the women that looked like me were, they don't act the way I particularly act. And that's no judgment towards them. It's just I couldn't see myself in them. And sometimes even now, looking at it from an adult lens where my frontal lobe was fully developed, I'm almost 30. I'm like, yeah, why did they have to act like that? Like, an example I could give is the show, two shows actually, one called Run the World and the other one called Harlem. And the one called Harlem, the only darker skin lead is extremely hypersexual, and she's the one that's the most unstable, um, doesn't have a career, is sleeping with men left and right. And it's like, why did she have to get that role? And then the lightest one out of the entire cast comes from a rich family. They're able to fund her lifestyle, and it's just not really fair. Whereas with Run the World, there is a parallel there, because the two darker skin leads, well, one's married, but the other one, yet again, another one that is like hookup culture, and then it's like, is that necessary? So much so to the point where in season 2, they actually wrote that character Ella out. And that's when I actually saw for myself that how they portrayed her as like this confused creative wasn't even necessary. Like, a lot of her scenes were not necessary. So yeah, I think you might not realize it, but then you draw yourself out of your natural environment, and you start to expand in the places that you go, and you start to realize how much media does affect not just the way you perceive yourself, but the way you perceive people in general.
I grew up in Manchester, so it is a different environment to London. I lived in London for like 2 years after uni. But like growing up, like I face a lot of like straightforward racism. Like there's no two ways about it. It is what it is. They would call you every word under the sun. The family faced a lot of racism. We had cars burned, fences taken, doors vandalized. It was a lot. We moved. Even when we moved, like I went to a primary school. I was the only Black kid in primary school at one point in the area that we lived in. So it was a huge thing. Like, so then when it came to social media and having TV shows to like be an escape, like even till today, I love watching TV. I love watching documentaries. I watch almost every and anything because I just find everything about life interesting. But like when it came to things like that, going through all of that in school, in life, just in general, and then you go to social media and then you kind of realize that no, none of these people look like me. I'm plus size, I'm dark skinned, and it's just a bit like, oh, okay, well, if I'm plus size, then I have to have a flat stomach. and then be shaped a certain way to be acceptable version of plus size. But I'm not necessarily like that. And I'm not like super, super curvy. Like, yeah, I have curves, that's great, love that about myself, but I wasn't like that. So then it got to a point where I was like, this is really affecting my mental health. Like I am seeing people that look so like the proportions of their body is like so carved and like manufactured that I just know I would not be able to achieve that naturally. So I had to then alter all my social medias, like on Instagram, make sure who I'm following just kind of resembled something of what I was looking for, resembled things that I was interested in. And it wasn't a case of like, I'm just following them because that's who people follow. So I felt like having the whole idea of like having racism, then also going to school where people are like, oh, I don't want to be in the sun too long, I'm gonna get too dark. And then things like, oh, why did you start to go natural? Because I was like, I'm tired of relaxing my hair. It was literally burning my scalp. So I was like, I'm gonna just go natural for some time to see how it goes. And then having, oh, your hair's sticking out in a weird way. And then trying to navigate going on Instagram and then seeing people who just don't have any resemblance of what I have. So yeah, I had to really tailor that through. And then when I moved to uni, I made like a huge decision. I was like, I'm just gonna be as authentically me as I can be, because now I've also like curated everything that I see around me, things I tell myself, all the social medias. I've watched like all these kinds of videos, things that I'd seen online, followed loads of content creators. I was super into makeup, fashion, all of that. And I made a whole environment around myself that catered to what I look like and how I behave, how I act, things that I was interested in. So when I went to uni, I made sure I had like a huge decision that I'm going to be like start all over again. I'm going to uni far away and I can like be the best version of myself. And like I think media and like social media did help me get through some of those barriers. Like I had questions and I'm someone who have questions, I've got to search it, I've got to find like a thing that I can understand and get through that. So I do think it made a huge part in like transforming me into the person I am today, because I think I have really strong values, have things like that that I stand on, and being able to see people that I look like was great.
I remember in primary school, like I got made fun of because of my hair. Like they compared my hair to I don't know if you guys watched this horror movie with the clown. I forgot the name of it, but there's this clown who's got like a red afro, and
Was it?
yeah, that's the film. Yeah, it. They because I used to have like quite like an afro when I was younger, so they would like I'd get mocked every day in primary school. Yeah, like in terms of like social media, um, there was a time where I didn't feel like confident in terms of like my body like shape. So I would follow girls who have had BBL done. And it got to the point it got so bad where I actually did some research and I did sort of start to save up to go to Turkey to do a BBL because I was so like complex about my body because on my mum's side, like all the females are very thick, like very curvaceous and I always used to question myself like how come I'm just like really slim. I don't really have any curves and stuff. And my mum and my aunties would be like, "Oh, don't worry, you're still young. It will come with time. You just need to accept your body for how it is now." But I would say it took a lot of work for me to get to where I am now. Like to accept, okay, this is actually what I look like. This is my body. I can't really um change it for anyone. So yeah.
My sort of experiences with media representation and how it affected me growing up in particular was the depiction of single mums and especially their kids, like, and where there was just constant messaging around both in sort of non-fiction media and fiction media. So you've got like the news constantly giving you statistics about how terrible single parents were and how terrible their children were. And I think growing up, it kind of it gave me a bit of a complex to, I guess, both buck the trend, but then also act like it didn't affect me because I didn't want to satisfy people who had those assumptions, where it's like, oh yeah, you are lesser. So I almost didn't really acknowledge that it was affecting me, while at the same time it was shaping the way I was sort of walking through the world. Because I mean, so I think I'm a bit older than everybody here as well. So I grew up, like my school days were pre-social media. So a lot of the sort of preconceptions about people were either very local, you know, very immediate to your environment, or the opposite, which was very sort of broad and national or international even. And so again, there wasn't this brevity, not brevity, there wasn't this breadth of people being able to speak for themselves. It was all very much about what the mainstream was telling you about your life. And it took me years to really accept that actually I had developed a low self-esteem because of that constant messaging that to be especially the girl child of a single mother, you are all kinds of different things. You know, you've got boys who are going to be criminalized, but then you've got girls who are kind of described as belonging on the scrap heap, and, you know, hypersexualization, people having very low expectations of your ability to discern, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'd say that was one of many. That's probably one that comes to mind quite prominently for me.
When it comes to like negative stereotypes, I think it comes down to things about your personal, like the way you view yourself. Because if you have been told time and time again that Black women are one certain way, and usually it's not anything uplifting, it's usually things like, oh, Black women are like baby mums, and there's nothing wrong with being a baby mum, but they depict it in such a way that it's like, oh, once you're a baby mum, that's it, you're done, that's all you are. And they're not really anything that would be high in any kind of career field. Even if they are creatives and they're doing great, like we see Beyonce, they're quite fair skinned. If they are dark skinned and amazing, then it's something that was just kind of like by accident, that people just love their personality. It's got nothing to do with how they look. So I think when it comes to things and you're constantly being told things like that, then it kind of makes you think, well, there's not really much of a, like, if people can reach up to the very top, like you can reach 50% of what most people can reach. So it kind of just caps you at that place. So like even when it came to, when I wanted to study at uni, I wanted to study fashion. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And it took so much convincing for like my family to get on board, for people to understand, even like things in the media, and you're watching all these shows like that are based around drugs, crime, kind of like the more urban American type of thing. And like the Black British media, when it comes to Black like youth, is obviously not as where it's supposed to be, especially back when like we were going through live school education.
We're in a society where young girls are observing sexual liberation, and it's being portrayed as one thing where it's different. So I'm now seeing that girls turn 18 and join OnlyFans, and it's like you haven't even given yourself a chance to know if that's something you want, if that's something you want to do.
Jenny Popatch is probably one of the most successful teen creators on TikTok.
Hi guys, get ready with me for Halloween.
Her real name is Rosalie Aratola. She just turned 16 and she has almost 7 million followers. She gained a huge following on Musical.ly from the age of 10, carried that following through to TikTok, and now she had the ability to expand to an even wider audience. She's receiving video views from 300,000 to 4.5 million on a daily basis.
Content that does the best for me, I feel like, is spontaneous. Those are always great, or shock value.
Hi guys, so as you may know, I'm an active user.
Those are very interesting, because if you have something crazy going on in your video, it's going to get more replays, more rewatches, and that just makes it skyrocket. Make sure something shocking is happening that people will just be like, wait, let me take a double take, and want to put their input and opinion, and want to send it to their friends, and want everybody else to see it.
But when you dive into her account, it's caused many people to ask, is this what kids should be doing online now?
It's insanity to me that this is like a normalized thing, that we're taking 12, 13, 14-year-olds, dressing them into almost nothing and making them famous. And nobody seems to bat a eye.
People just, when they realize my age, they're like in this like shock or disbelief that I'm so young, and they're like, why are you posting things like that? Why are you dancing on TikTok? Why are you dancing in crop tops? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Just why are you doing you at 16? And the funny thing is because like you could go to a school, a public school, and you'd probably find a million other 16-year-olds just like me that are wearing the same clothing as me, that are doing their makeup just like me, everything just like I am. I'm doing what every other 16-year-old girl is doing. I'm just being viewed by a lot of people, and people think that that's dangerous, I guess. Why should I not be doing something that is so kid-friendly and so like normal to teenagers because the weirdo in the corner is watching me with provocative thoughts? Why should we leave? They should be the ones, filtered out.
Like now, these children, when they go through things, it makes it to TikTok, and then before you know it, 21,000 people know what's going on in your personal business. So I definitely feel like now more than ever, self-esteem is on the brink of non-existence for young women that are coming up in the society, because what is being pushed is very dangerous, and they don't like there's no spaces for them. Like, even I don't even see kids chilling in like shopping centers anymore. Like, and if they do, someone's coming with a camera and a mic to come and ask stupid questions. It's very tough for these kids, and I don't know where this is going with them, honestly speaking. I don't know how it's going to change, because it seems like the voices that are amplified are the ones that are negative.
I have three nieces. One's 18, one's like 15, the other's like 9. So like seeing, especially the 15-year-old, like seeing how school is for her as compared to what school was for me. Like I finished high school like in like maybe like 5, 6 years ago now. So it's been a couple years, and like going through college, going through uni, all of that, like that was different to what I'm seeing now. Like things that they're doing now are things that I was doing when I was like in uni, or like I was maybe like finishing college. Like even I didn't join most of my social media until I finished high school, because I a lot of people in my school had socials, they had Snapchats, Facebooks, all of that, whatever. And I was just like, I am personally just not interested. And that's okay, well, I'm gonna finish school, might as well keep in touch with everyone and like start then. But like I have cousins who have gone viral. I have cousins who are like starting up being influencers. I'm like, this is a lot.
I didn't want to go to the party. I wanted to go to the party to scare bitches.
For the past few years, TikTok has been the fastest growing social media platform in the world. It currently boasts around 1 billion active users. And its astonishing growth was facilitated by crisis. During those long months of compelled COVID hibernation, TikTok was the most downloaded app in the world. A platform famous for its ubiquitous dance trends became a sort of gateway drug for Gen Zs and younger millennials.
I remember when I was younger watching like True Jackson VP, and like I'd see them doing all the fashion lines for like the kids, and I think, oh my gosh, like first of all, that's teen TV, so that was age appropriate. Then they had like teen social medias, which was all age appropriate, and then teen clothing, all age appropriate. Like in some of the areas I grew up, they didn't have maybe like third spaces where you could go, but virtually you had all of that available to you. But now all of those have gone. Like it is literally just the mainstream social media that everybody is on. And I'm like, there's no way I should be interacting with a 14-year-old on Twitter. My Twitter is catered to people my age. So it's kind of like, I don't understand like how all of that
boundary
disappeared. The boundaries have gone, all of that has disappeared. Like, so I think media and where it's going, it is a very, like, even now I say it's a very dangerous point. Like as you mentioned, OnlyFans, like when Bad Baby, like they were waiting for her to turn 18. Like I'm very much of a liberal person, like you do what you want. But then I always think about Mia Khalifa, who was like, I was kind of like forced into that. I didn't know what I wanted, I didn't have a job. And then she's like, I just kind of regret all of that being out there at the time. Like now she has OnlyFans and she does it on her own accord. But that's because she had the time to think about doing it on her own accord. When she started, she mentioned that she didn't necessarily want to have gone into it that young. So like seeing people just like, oh yeah, it's easy, it's quick, it's this, it's like, it's a lot of mental stuff that people are forgetting. And then that taken away of the middle ages of being like 13, it's like 17, all that where you're not actually quite an adult yet. So I think the way media is going, it's going to allow for people to kind of feel like from the ages when they hit the teen years, they are adult. I think it's kind of, the media is just kind of completely blurred that boundary between childhood and adulthood.
That
Yeah.
school, I went to an all-girls school. The line between childhood and adulthood is always blurred because when you're in that phase of adolescence and your hormones are raging and you're so confused about a lot of things. And when I was in school, going to an all-girls school, you find the girls there, I wouldn't say age quicker, but they do because there's no boys in the environment. So there's always there was always an in section in every year. There's always a section of girls that were a bit more advanced in comparison to everybody else. And those girls that were advanced, usually because of peer pressure, maybe because they didn't have as much structure at home. There was many things that would make them a group that they shared a like commonality that allowed them to basically engage in sexual activity at a very young age. Now, when we was in school, Facebook had just started, really and truly, literally just kicked off. Like I still was using MSN when I was in year 7, year 8. MSN was being phased out and Facebook had just started. The difference between social media then and social media now is that then you needed to be somebody's friend to be able to access their information. Now I could just see it. I don't even need to know you. I don't even need to ever have seen you before. It is not that hard to access.
I'm really grateful that I didn't really grow up like having access to the internet so early. I didn't really get a phone until I was like probably final year of secondary school. And I think this generation, they're just so quick to grow up. Like when I see young girls who are like 14, even like 15, like 13, 14, 15, and they've already wearing makeup and they've got like fake nails and stuff and frontals. I'm just like, why are you so quick to grow up? Why not just like enjoy your childhood and just, you know, take it one step at a time. There's no need to like be in a rush. There's no need to um become an adult so quickly. But yeah, I really think the media of today like is very dangerous, and if it's not gained, if there's not like a control, like right now, I think the future generations are just absolutely done for.
And around the 2013 mark, it became very dangerous. So I came off of the app altogether because that was at the time when it had become what people would be like, oh, Black Twitter. That is when Black Twitter was created, the 2013 era, because that was a time when bullying happened and you could say whatever you felt like and there was no consequences for it, which is why when people pull up old tweets and they're within the 2013 to 2016 region, I'm like, that was the time where you didn't want to be on Twitter as a woman that wasn't necessarily conventionally attractive, or if you didn't have high self-esteem, or like I didn't go back on Twitter until 2020. That's how long I was off of Twitter for, because the things I was seeing on there was absolutely disgusting. So I can only imagine for these young people who haven't grown up in an era where you had privacy, because that's the problem now. There's no such thing as privacy. Your Snapchat account can be open. You can have a public profile on Snapchat, on TikTok, unless you've made your page private. But yet again, these children don't understand privacy because they've not grown up in the era where you had to request to be somebody's friend to be able to access that information. So it's like I have to give you that privilege. So it's almost like with the same with sex work, because the line for consent has been blurred. They don't even understand what consent means. Now we're having to teach people consent. And we are regressing as a society because of how easy it is to access each other. And it shouldn't be like that.
I just think there should be more safeguarding. I think that's a huge thing that just needs to be put in place. Like, there's so many things that are coming up as new. Like, I think, was it not the other day that Angel, I can't remember her last name, the women's NBA basketball player from America, Angel Reese, I think,
Yeah.
and they were talking with the whole rise of AI, like things like that, like just being able to create AI images that are inappropriate of people, young people, and there's just so many things. And like I feel like Black women always get in a disproportionately hurt by certain things like this. because they feel like they're not protected. They feel like they're not really seen as worthy of, the outrage and, things like that.
I guess I'm really like, y'all really don't really understand, like, it's bigger than basketball. Like, apparently I'm just like this, I don't know. I'm pretty, so like, this happened to a lot of other pretty basketball players, and like, I think this happened to Skylar Diggins before. That's what I think. Don't quote me, but I think Skylar Diggins, this happened to Skylar Diggins before. But like, people are like, I have an appeal to many people, and they just want to find weird ways to like sexualize me, which is so weird. Because if I didn't look the way I would look, y'all wouldn't be doing this. And I'm black, so it's like, I'm black, I'm pretty, I'm beautiful, I'm fit, I have an appeal, so they try to, it's weird. And y'all be grown, it be grown men like 50 years old. It'd be weird.